Okay, I think I'm going to start, and whoever joins, even though it's small, it's right now it's you and me, but whoever else joins will join in. And today we're dealing with Pluto. So Pluto's the last. It's not the last. It's the last of the outer planets that I use. There's other planets being discovered as we go, and probably in 20 years there'll be probably another 40 or 30 or 40 planets added to the solar system. But they won't be the planets we see. They won't be the ones that are with the rulerships. They'll have a presence, and there'll be other things, and there'll be so many things to look at. But keeping perspective, right now, it's enough to use Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto as the outer planets. When I was first starting, heck, they didn't know it was astrology 40 years ago. They didn't know much about Pluto. They didn't even know the seasons. They didn't know it had a moon. They didn't know hardly anything about it. It was just out there. And now we got close-up pictures of Pluto and its moon Charon. And in a strange way, as we get pictures of Pluto, we're starting to see the realities of Pluto in life. And okay, so there's a process of, as a planet's discovered, it becomes born in a person's, in the world's consciousness, and then it begins to evolve and take its presence. And it was there before we were conscious of it, but it was a subliminal energy. Now, as we move forward, each of the planets are more conscious, and then there'll be Quaoar and Sedna and other planets yet to come. But Pluto, of the three outer planets that we use, we had the grouping of the three inner planets: Moon, Mercury, Venus, our inner faculties, our Sun, the confidence, then our Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, how we put out energy, how we learn from experience, and what we accomplish in our life. Then we have the first outer planet is the excitement, looking for excitement, looking to change the status of things, looking to reform or alternate. So it's shocking and exciting, but also unnerving and disruptive. When we get to Neptune, we got to the planet of belief, vision, or romance and adventure. That's called romance and adventure. But we have faith, we have belief, we want to go towards something. And there's a dream. Of course, those dreams, like you're the most beautiful person in the world, I love you, there's no, we're soulmates, so many of these beliefs, they start with great enchantment, but can end with disenchantment or despair or despondency, which is sort of the sorrow or the sadness of Neptune. The great dreams and the great sorrows, Neptune. When you get to Pluto, it's one step out. It's not the excitement, it's not the dream, it's we call it the reality check. So Pluto is it's kind of the voice of reality, of truth and consequences would be a better word. Reality check, I use the truth and consequences. What's true? What's the result of truth? And in a way, whenever you've gone through really any of the other planets, especially Pluto, there's a certain harsh reality to it. This is reality, this is the truth. And there's, the consequences are usually a greater clarity, but a loss of innocence. So someone could have a great dream and a great romance and be out traveling in the world and following their adventures, or then there could be a war or violence or a rape or something happens and the harsh reality comes in. That's Pluto. Well, it can be other things, but from the gullibility of Neptune, reality tends to look very severe. So I think if you use it as the prod of truth, as this truth and consequence employed, you'll be able to see this function. It kind of functions like the auditor general of the solar system. So if you have a belief, it's giving you, you're excited, you have a belief, you believe you're on the right track, you're part of the right team, you were, yeah, okay, you were a Democrat and you never would have believed that Trump would have got in. Well, then when he got in, that was Pluto. That was the reality check for the, and then once for all the Democrats. But there's a harsh quality to, like, truth. Truth is, like, I can love you and hate you. Like, you can have a kid. How can you love and hate your kid? And still you're there for the kid, but you do. You have to do things of necessity. Things have to be done. The kid, I mean, some of this is practical, matter-of-fact things, but your attitude, the minute you get a wrong attitude or a difficult attitude and Pluto comes in, it's going to magnify it and force it to its consequences. So when you're doing a truth and consequences, you're doing a reality check, you're doing the audit of your life. If you're working at something you don't like or don't want, or you're with someone you don't want to be with, or they're with you, you want to be with them and they don't want to be with you, it can only go along for a certain amount of time before there's a reality check. If you're doing something wrong at business, if you're, I mean, Saturn's karma and Pluto is kind of a harsher karma. As a god in the Greek mythology, Saturn promised one of his many daughters to Pluto. And he promised that Pluto could marry one of his daughters. Well, Pluto waited and waited and waited, and a year went by, 2 years went by, 3 years went by. And Pluto and Saturn kept delaying the factor, which Saturn tends to do, and not sending his daughter, till finally, Pluto finally got mad, went up and stole the daughter and brought Persephone down into Hades, into his room, into his area, and married her. So they, what? I don't know if they married, but he brought her back down into Hades, and she was his partner. And she was there all winter for 6 months, and then everyone was begging for her to be returned and for her to be returned, even though she was promised to Pluto. That was the truth. And the reality of it seemed too harsh, or seemed for her to live in that dark, cold world would seem to be really unfair. So after 6 months of being with Pluto, Pluto let her go back to be above in the upper world for 6 months, to see Saturn, to see her father and other people. Let her go back up for 6 months. But because she'd already stayed with him and ate with him and lived with him, she couldn't go up and leave him completely. She still had to stay bound with him. So hence Persephone spent half the year in the world and half the year down in Hades. But the message in this is not that Pluto is not unjust. Pluto is ferociously just. It's just to the letter of the law, just without favors. Wow, if we had to look at most of the things we're doing and be just without favors, that's brutal. We usually expect a little leniency or a little forgiveness or a little something. Pluto isn't that. Pluto is, no, you've done this, this is this. So Pluto's in situations where power struggles and controls and confrontations come up in our life. When a great hate or someone really confronts you, when it brings up great fears and forces you to have to face your fears or deal with them. When you're trying to make this function applicable in your chart, it's like a nerve where there's fear and confrontation, where things are going to be a little bit harsh, and you're going to have to be matter-of-fact truth. You're going to have to be harshly true. So truth is the being truthful, being absolutely truthful, being harshly truthful. That's the good side of Pluto. Pay it off. By the time an auditor is on your doorstep and they're going to audit your business, by the time they're knocking on the door, it's too late to try and hide things out the back door. You take your punishment. Okay, so by the time you lend someone money, sooner or later you're going to have to pay it back. And then Pluto includes also the things that don't seem fair in your life that happen, that just weren't fair, just seem outrageously unfair. Those are the karmic debts, Saturnian debts, that you're paying off from another lifetime. And here they are now, you have to deal with it. Oh, I don't want to deal with it, I can't deal with this, it's too heavy. So what? Here you are, deal with it. So I like to use the word so what when I'm relating to Pluto. When I see Pluto's influence on something, its influence doesn't seem fair, but it's harshly true, it's brutally true. So you break your leg and you're going to be crippled for a while, so what? Put your time in and try and do what you can. You get in a car accident, you're not going to get your mobility again. Do you give up, or do you try and struggle and say, okay, so what? I'm going to have to make do with whatever I've got? And nobody's born equal. Everybody's born with different strengths and different vulnerabilities. It doesn't seem fair sometimes, our vulnerabilities. So what? You got to deal with them. A friend of mine had a little baby girl, and she had no feet, just some parts of the heel, and no fingers on one hand and smaller fingers on the other hand. So she was born like this. That was normal for her. So as he brought her up, he didn't make a big deal of it. If she had to crawl and climb to get to the, until, like, she had to use her artificial limbs, but she'd have to crawl if she wanted to crawl or climb. She had to put them on herself. She had to just be normal about them. Self-pity wasn't going to help her. It required, okay, so what? Here I am. And great things can be accomplished when this power, the power of truth and consequences is used properly. But there's always a harshness or severity to it. You know, if you tell someone you love them when you like them, they're going to expect too much, they're going to get hurt. If you tell someone you like them when you really love them and they don't stick around, you're going to get hurt. So what's true? Well, I love you, sort of. I'm not sure yet. Let's take some more time to find out. You know, but usually Neptune comes along, I want you, I need you, this is beautiful, I love you, I love you. And it's not 100% truth. It's a belief more than a truth. Okay, so regardless of what consequence, there's going to be this harshness wherever Pluto is. And